Our next guest on the Any Given Runday podcast is a triathlon coach who definitely walks the walk with 9 full distance Ironmans and 15 by 70.3 events from multiple continents under his belt to date. Ambrose Duggan, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. How are you getting on?
I'm good, Sean. Thanks very much, and Eric. Thanks a million, guys, for having me on today. Delighted to be here.
Ambrose, what do you do with your spare time?
I like to do a bit of swimming, biking, and running.
What do you tell the better half you do with your spare time?
Well, she does it as well, so I can't get away.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, sold. It's always about if you can include them.
We're family effort here now, so.
Brilliant. Ambrose, that is a phenomenal introduction. You've done a phenomenal amount, and
Thanks, guys.
anyone who knows running knows what it takes to do a marathon. Anyone who knows triathlon knows what it takes to cover an Ironman, and even that 70.3. But you didn't start there. How did you get into sport, Ambrose?
On sport, I was one of those people growing up in school that I had no interest in sport. I was more interested in getting out of school, smoking cigarettes, and drinking pints. That's what I wanted to do. I had no.
So, and what has changed?
Well, there's no alcohol in this today, so no. I suppose when I was 18 or 19, I had no interest. All I wanted to do was if I had no interest in team sports or anything like that. And I suppose when I was about maybe 21 or 22, I was very overweight. I was up on maybe 20 stone, and I just realised something had to change. Otherwise, my life was going one particular way. So I started doing a little bit of running one day, and when I was living at home at my parents' house, there was a little track around the house. There was only 300 or 400 metres, so I started with that. Just started doing a little bit of running, and then I remember I did one of the 5 mile Dublin series in Dublin. It was a long time ago, and I think that was the first event I ever did. I think at 23, and I dragged myself around the course up there around the Phoenix Park. And I always liked cycling from a young lad. And my dad was always an avid cyclist, and I always had a passion from him and swimming. So I just started doing a little bit of cycling. Bought my first bike. I should have never sold it. I should have kept it as a memento over the years. And then I started doing a little bit of swimming. I couldn't do the front crawl, so I did the breaststroke. And then someone said to me one day, obviously I'm from Athlone. Triathlon used to be a big race here in Athlone years ago. So I signed up to do that, got into that. And then I remember I went out that night, and a friend of mine said to me, he had just come back and he'd done Ironman Austria. And he had said to me, why don't you go off and do an Ironman? So no research, no nothing. Did what I tell anyone not to do, and it's go straight in and do a full distance Ironman. But unfortunately, it didn't end very well for me. I went to Ironman Wales in 2014, and I came away with my tail between my legs, totally unprepared, and I DNF'd over there. So instead of taking it on the chin, I decided to sign up for 2015 and went back and I DNF'd again over there in 2015, which makes it even more. Now I got very close in 15 to the bike. I was 15 seconds off the cutoff point. So I remember I sat down with my fiance at the time, she's now my wife, and we had a real chat about it. And I just kind of thought, maybe the sport isn't for me because it's an endurance sport. It's not for everybody. And I just had to and so she had the idea of maybe doing a 70.3. So I went to Mallorca the following year and I did a 70.3. And I suppose it was more for the confidence boost about just getting that finishing line, getting that small win. So I got that, and then I went on to Barcelona later on that year, and that's what has me on this mad Ironman journey that I've been on ever since. So love it. Couldn't recommend it enough to anybody else.
Now, Sean laughed at me. I signed up for a full for my first one as well, because the way I said it was buy one half, get one free. So if I just finished, I was able to get 2 70.3s done in the one day.
I'm all for value. And back then, I'm all for saying if you can spend as long in the course as possible, take as much nutrition, get as much value out of the course. But no, in fairness, I picked Wales because it was logistically simple. And in fairness, I did charity. I did a charity fundraising at the time. It was for a local cancer hospice, and I raised nearly $4,000 for them. Even the fact that I DNF'd, I didn't mind. It was still phenomenal to be able to support them that way. But no, I would recommend. Wales was the last mass start in Europe in 14. So I went in, 3,000 of us into the water, me doing my breaststroke. Couldn't even front crawl. I don't know how I got through the water, but managed to get through it. But yeah, no, I did go back to Wales. I was supposed to go back in 2020, but obviously COVID happened then. So I got back in 22 and finished it. And at that time, I got this thing called the Tri-Nations Award. It's where I had done Wales, Cork and Bolton in a kind of a 3-year period. So it was the icing on the cake, got brought up by the pros, got handed my medal by Joe Skipper, and it was just, it was the icing on the cake for me.
Wow. I didn't even know that was a thing. That was
impressive. It was a thing. I'm looking, I can see the medals over there. So if you do it, so I did Cork in 19, I did Bolton in 21, and then Wales in obviously 22. and then to do this thing called the Tri Nations Award. I think it's gone now because obviously Ironman Cork isn't a runner at the moment, but they do it in other countries like in Spain and Italy. They have this thing as well. It's a gimmick. You know what I mean? It's a gimmick. It's a money grab thing. But look, I'm all for a gimmick and I'm all for an extra shiny medal. So love it.
As long as it gives you something shiny, I'm a sucker for a medal and a t-shirt.
Definitely.
Can we take a step back, because obviously we're getting to the stage now where we're getting medals, we're doing Ironman year on year. When we were sitting down and talking to the fiance about what it is, what does it mean to fail? And I say that in a positive sense, because a DNF is you've pushed, you've tried, you've failed. How does that feel, given the effort you were putting in, turning your life around? You know, obviously you're breaststroking, you're just trying to do this in the endurance game. How do you come back from that? And what was the steps from that moment of sitting down to the Ironman? What did you do in your life to kind of change that? And I hope you weren't too hard on yourself, but in a way to set yourself up on a trajectory then for success.
Yeah, I suppose it's not a thing that people talk about all that much. You know what I mean? And that's one of the ways I run the social media page. Like I originally started it as just a way for me to just stop spamming all my family and friends and just set up something. Just set up something that, and it was my wife said to me, just set up a page. And I said, well, look, if I have 5 followers or 10 followers, but I think a lot of us get caught up in it's all about the wins, it's all about the success. But I am a firm believer in that to celebrate the success of getting to an event, like getting to an Ironman with injury free, you know what I mean? Just getting to that start line to me is the success. And I always say it's the victory lap, like the race is the victory lap. So I remember it is a hard pill to swallow. Like in Wales, I came in on the sweeper vehicle the first year. The second year, I was 90 seconds off the cut-off period. And it's a hard place it's a hard place to be 2 years in a row. And just, I suppose to have that bit of soul searching where you're thinking, maybe I'm not built for it. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to be a pro golfer or anything like that. So there's some sports that, that just maybe aren't suited to us. But I suppose it was the support of my wife. Like she continued on, you know what I mean? Because she had said to me, look, Ambrose, I don't think you're able for this. Or, this is just past your capabilities. I would have listened to it. But she said, go get the win. And the win was going to Mallorca. And it was funny the year I went to Mallorca. It was the year, I think it was in 2016, it last rain. And the transition was on the beach. So we were all sitting on the beach and you come out of the water, but you're putting your foot down into a foot of water. It was a total, and I remember I got stung by a jellyfish and there was a lady there and she said to me, are you allergic to jellyfish? So I said, I don't know. So she said, sit there for 5 minutes and we'll find out. But I think it's a resilience thing. And I think Ironman is a resilience thing. The long distance endurance stuff is all about resilience. And it's all about like having that mental fortitude to be able to kind of push through, because like I have DNF'd out of the races over the years, and I do believe my mindset towards it has changed. Like I DNF'd in Frankfurt another year. I got heat stroke and I ended up in hospital, which was a scary place to be. I attempted Lanzarote another year, and that unfortunately got the better of me. And hands and well done to anybody who's ever done Lanzarote, because it's a beast of a course. So it's not one that I preferably go back to again. But I have been back to Frankfurt and I have finished Frankfurt. But I suppose it's just, from my perspective, it's like I'm stubborn. I'm plenty of stubbornness, and I think you need that to kind of keep going. But like sometimes you fall down, but it's about how you kind of get up. Without sounding like a pamphlet or something, but it's kind of how you get up and you just kind of dust yourself off. And like I do remember I had a coach years ago, and like there was no mention of when he was doing a roundup at the end of the year in relation to the athletes, there was no mention of my success, and because he didn't want to celebrate the fact that I DNF'd, and like I have an athlete at the moment that I'm helping with, like, and she's 60 to 64, and she came in the top age category in America in a 70.3 a few weeks ago. Like that to me is inspiring, like a female athlete at that age, irrespective of whatever time she did, and even if she had DNF'd, I still would have put up a post on her about my page, because you have to celebrate. It's not all about, the first place and the podiums, they're brilliant, but, like I'm never going to qualify for Kona via podium finish or anything like that. But I'm going to get as many Ironmans as I can in my life. And it's probably a long-winded answer, Eric. Sorry.
No, and that's what we like to see. And it is something, when you go long, there is you versus the mind. When we look at what it is to do endurance and dealing with our own stuff and managing our work and managing our home life, you're obviously very lucky to have support there at home in triathlon as well, which makes it easy because training sessions can be managed. You can manage schedules, training plans. When you're dealing with people, coaching people, or even yourself, what benefit does the triathlon? Because it's a lot of time on your own, especially in the water. I find the water, I don't know what goes on in my brain, but the noise that's inside my head when I'm swimming is phenomenal. You can really hear your own thoughts. But how do you find triathlon gives you in terms of headspace or in terms of, well, some people call it a meditation? And what do you think it does for you in terms of being active and mental health and that kind of thing?
Well, mental health is the reason I do sport is for my mental health. And I think that it's so important for everyone's mental health, like whether that's playing five-a-side soccer or whether that's doing any sort of sport to do. Like it is, for me, triathlon is my mental health. And it's my father sadly passed away just over 2 years ago, and it was triathlon that actually got me through that tough time and period and training, etc. And I think it's so important that you have that in your life, do you know what I mean? And that you have support around you, etc. But like I would find, like it's a lonely sport. Like you know yourself too, either marathon training or Ironman training, it is lonely. Like it is lonely being out on the bike for 6 hours and your earphones go dead after about 5 hours and all you're listening to yourself is your own puffing and grunting, while you're going, especially like at a swimming. Like I know people wear headphones when they swim now. I can't do that as well.
No, geez,
no, I can't. Just
headphones in the water?
Yeah, did you not see these, Sean?
No, I don't go near the swimming pool, but no, Jesus, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, shock headphones are one of them, and you can say if you have some of the Garmin's do music, and you can sync off the music onto the headphones, and they're kind of a bone conducting headphones, so it kind of goes straight.
You can kind of hear around you and stuff. Yeah, I'm familiar with the shocks. No, they're water resistant at all, but that sounds mad.
Yeah, so if Shocks want to send me out a pair of headphones, I'll gladly take it.
Or they can give us €1 million. We look after it as well.
I'll definitely take it. But I think, like, to go out, like cycling is my main thing. Cycling is what I love. Like, it's what I'm passionate about. Probably more. Like, I'm not a runner. I'm 6'2", 95 kilos. I'm not a runner. I'm not built for it. Like when I was in Hamburg a few weeks ago, I just slogged out the marathon at the end. Like I have done standalone marathons over the years, Dublin in particular. Like I would have ran, I'm in the Guard, so I would have ran with the Thin Blue Line there for years. And it's an amazing event and amazing to support, but I'm not a runner. I can swim. I'm a good swimmer, good cyclist, but the running, fair play to you lads for doing all your marathons, because I just drag myself around the place.
I've been dragging myself around now for a little while. But it is something. And look, the beauty about triathlon is, and one thing I found with the training, and a lot of people now, and the crossover when they say marathon training and cross training and this and that, what I found with triathlon training was everything improved, because the minute I got bored of running, I was on the bike. The minute I was bored of the bike, I was in the pool. I always had a different thing to focus on, or something else to work on and strive to improve on. And talking about making improvements and little things, breaststroke is how you started. Are you still doing the breaststroke, or has that improved to the front crawl now?
Thankfully, I upgraded after Wales, and I'm terrible because I've turned into such a snob now. Because if I see someone breaststroking beside me, I'm kind of looking at them saying, "Why are you doing?" Because in Hamburg a few weeks ago, I seen someone breaststroking, and I just thought I knew what sort of pain was ahead of them for the whole swim. So no, I changed. There's a swim coach in Athlone here that I would have trained with for years, and in fairness, he took me under his wing like a 5-year-old and taught me how to swim the front crawl again. So, and in fairness, it would be something that I've improved on an awful lot. And as a Triathlon Ireland coach as well, it's something that I would have got extra skills from them as well in terms of the swimming as well. And like that, I coach with my local triathlon club as well, Midlands Triathlon Club in Mullingar. So like that, any skills that I can pass on to them. But thankfully, no, I did one Ironman with the breaststroke, and ever since then, now I've moved on to a more efficient stroke.
And I asked that for a reason, Ambrose. The biggest thing is the fear of swimming. I think that is what's keeping a lot of people out of triathlon. It's definitely what kept me out of open water swimming more so than swimming. What advice do you have, coming from someone who took on an Ironman with the intention of doing a breaststroke to now progressing, developing, now coaching? What advice do you have to people who are looking to, if swimming is what's keeping you away from the sport, what do you recommend to people?
Well, swimming is the massive barrier to getting into the sport, and I know that with my own wife. So my wife has a fear of the water. So when we do 70.3s, we're going to Portugal at the end of the year. So we're going to do a relay over there. I'll do the swimming part, she'll do the bike, and she'll do the run. But it is her goal in the next 2 years to do a full 70.3. But the swimming it's a massive barrier, and it's the fear of the water. Like I have a fear of spiders. It'd be the equivalent of someone saying to me, put your hand into a bunch of spiders there. You know what I mean? Like it is a genuine fear, and you have to respect it. And the water is a very dangerous place as well, because like you can drown in a foot of water. Do you know what I mean? And I do see where I do swim in Mullingar, kind of on a weekly basis. You see people going out and they're not swimming with flotation devices, just simple safety things. But it's just about getting into the water, and it's about finding maybe a coach that's going to properly help you and properly teach you. Like there's a lot of coaches out there, and it's a money-driven business for some of them, and that's their own prerogative. You know what I mean? But if you can find a coach that's as invested in you as in your progress as anything, and that's the key. You know what I mean? And with the water, it's just about getting into it. And like the good thing about doing an Ironman is it goes in waves. So whether that be a triathlon or an Ironman, just put yourself at the end of the wave. Get into the water, get yourself settled, and just set off. And it doesn't matter. I remember I did my first swim, and it was a very embarrassing time. But it doesn't matter. It's just about getting comfortable with it. But it is a fear, and it is a genuine barrier for so many people, unfortunately.
I know mine is definitely fear driven. Well, a pool is fine. Somersault, diving board, whatever. A pool is okay. But open water, there's just something about it that terrifies me. And for me, it took a lot of exposure. And it was funny. It was actually the lakes around Athlone that we went swimming. I went swimming with Lorcan. And when you put your head in the water, they're bog lakes, and they are dark. And it was the most scared I have ever been in my life to swim just along the reeds, and then a reed will grab me, and then it's a sea monster. Even though it's a lake, a sea monster has come to kill me. And the panic, and the sheer panic when I put my head in the water, not able to breathe out, not able to do this. It's hard to explain, but for me, it just took a lot of time of getting used to that panic, the exposure of it. And that's how I managed. And I have to say, no, I'm not discrediting the lakes around Athlone. It's beautiful for a swim, but having done the pitch black swim there, every other swim was beautiful after that, because, even when you go to Lough and Mullingar, swimming along the rocks, you've good visibility, and it's a nice lake to swim along. And it's almost like swimming in a pool, essentially, because you've got a track as such to follow as you head on out.
It's a spring-fed lake, so it's lovely. Compared to Coosan Point, it's probably the other lake that you're on.
Coosan, that's where I was.
It's a dark lake, and like that. There's a video on social media, I don't know if you've seen it recently, where someone thinks of what they see when they're swimming, and it's like that. It's like a shark that's coming towards them underneath the water. And I've been
definitely was,
times, and had something on my foot one day, and I was just hoping that it was a pike and not a water rat in Coosan.
Oh, jeez.
But I like, if there was any athlete there that's considering it, my genuine thing would be that, find a triathlon club, but find a proper triathlon club, one that is properly going to support you, help you, etc. Because, you can sometimes going into triathlon clubs, they can be a bit intimidatory, do you know what I mean? Because especially if it's full of Ironman, you know what I mean? So it's just to find someone that's going to support you, and just to get into the water with a proper swim coach, someone that's properly qualified. And it's just practice. That's, but it is genuine fear, and you have to respect it. Like, I've swam a few places, open water and seas, and I've gotten a few frights, and it is a scary place when you get caught by a current and you're pulled out, when you're on your own there. So it is, yeah.
Just speaking on the swimming and the fairs and stuff, I know you did Hamburg a few weeks ago. A few weeks before that, though, somehow, like 21 days before that, you did the Gulf Coast. You get there, awful weather. And the swim gets cancelled. I mean, you're doing all these events, the amount you've done so far, something like the swim does cancel. When that happens, is your immediate mindset a bit of, I only have to get my bike now, I love getting on the bike and away I go? Or do you feel like, but the Ironman has to be all three? What is your approach when that happens?
No, I like, the Gulf Coast was kind of funny, because I was already nervous going into it, because I'd swam over there a few times before at Ironman Florida. It's the same location. And always their big thing was, their selling point is you'll see loads of marine life. So I was over there the first year, and I was like, I'm going to see maybe a sea turtle or a dolphin or something. No, I saw jellyfish. And I saw plenty of jellyfish. That was the only. But I remember that morning,
you wanted to see.
I know. I remember that morning. I remember I was texting my wife, and the swim was cancelled, but it was looking like a possible non-wetsuit swim. So I was quite nervous. But I do tell anyone that I talk to, I'm still as nervous standing at the start line as anybody. There was a guy, a friend of mine, Tony. I was out. He was in Hamburg with me a few weeks ago, and we were both going into the water at the same time, and it was his first one, and I was as nervous as him. But over in the Gulf Coast, I suppose when the swim was cancelled, I was relieved, because like, I swam in Ironman Cork a few years ago when that race shouldn't have went ahead. It was very sad, obviously, what happened there. But like, it's a scary place, and it's the last place that you want to be if anything happens, because, if something happens on the bike, you fall off the bike. Something happens on the run, you just collapse. But the water's a scary place. But someone said to me after that race, they said, were you disappointed? You went all the way to Florida with your bike, and, there was no swim. But you only got to do the bike and the run. And it's funny because that race was actually cancelled. They suspended the race an hour after I had finished it. That I think nearly 1,200 people didn't finish it because there was a tornado warning. But I said to that person, I said, in 40 years' time, like I'm 44, when I'm 84, if I'm still alive, I'd be delighted to be any part of the world with my bike, doing a bike and run. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I'm very fortunate to be able to go to these events. I'm very fortunate to be fit and able to be able to train at them, train for them. And like, that's how I kind of look at it. But I was relieved. I was a bit I would have went into the water and I would have swam over there. But I remember I was down at the shore and I was looking at the water and you could see just the dark clouds, you know what I mean? And it's funny because when I was in Hamburg, there was an issue with the weather in Hamburg as well. So I had people texting me, like, my next event is Leeds. And I had people text me telling me not to come to Leeds because I'm like some sort of bad omen at the moment. As well. So people don't want me coming to their events now.
It's mad though, and you will hear some phenomenal swimmers, lifesavers, beach lifeguards, and like, oh, it's fine, it's good. It's like, yeah, it's fine for you, but it's for an island nation. We are terrible with the water. As a general rule, we're pretty bad in terms of swimming ability. We've got some phenomenal swimmers, but as a whole, we haven't got it built into us from when we're young. So it's hard to learn and to have that confidence when you know what you know about what can go wrong, and you have a few more innate fears built in. And it's one thing that I don't know. I think I'm going to be like you, Ambrose. I think no matter what start line I stand on, as soon as I get out of the water, I'm like, oh, thank God. The rest of the day now will just be enjoyable, no matter what comes. It's
always once I get off the bike, because I do believe, like, the water, like, some people I do chat to them and they're all upset. Like, you have to be in one discipline at a time. You're either in the water but you're not in the water and half on the bike, that your mindset is there. But I always do worry about the bike as well, because the bike is the one part that can let you down. And I'm always feared every time I rebuild my bike in a foreign country that I'm going to have a screw left over, or it's something's going to break, or you're going to over torque something, just out of, give it one more turn. I had it in a race before where I was like, I'll just give it one more turn. And my wife was giving out to me and I gave it one more turn and I sheared off a screw. And then she says, that's what you get. That's what you get for keep messing it. You know what I mean? So anyway, I went down to the bike mechanics and they were very helpful and they fixed it for me. So.
Yeah, it was something that happened to me as well. My back wheel started to come loose with the last 25k, and the brakes were rubbing, and it was awful. I nearly
a prayer and a wish getting to the end of it.
That was it. I tried to sell Sean my bike as I was crossing into transition. I was done with it forever at that stage. When you look at obviously training a lot of individual, how important are clubs? And I know you've touched on it a couple of times, but we like to bring it up and support triathlon clubs around it. How important are clubs, and do you have to be available for every session to be a part of a club? Because I know for me, when I'm back working, I could be on air ambulance this week, I could be on a course this week, and I'm always missing a session here, a session there. So for me, I feel like I don't want to be half involved. But is that true, or what way does it work for most people, Ambrose? How do they manage being a part of a club and this volume of training and family?
Yeah, well, look, I've been involved since I started triathlon. I was involved in my local club here for years. I moved on from them, and now I'm obviously heavily involved in one of the coaches with Midlands Triathlon Club now. But I would think that, like, the long distance stuff is very isolating. Like, it is isolating. Like, it's very hard to put up on the WhatsApp group, going for 120k cycle in the morning, lads. Does anyone join me? And you're just left there with a tumbleweed because nobody wants to, because nobody's doing 100. And sometimes you'd have these kind of ups and downs in clubs, you know what I mean? Like where you could have 3 or 4 people and they're all training for a different race, and and you can get maybe the group cycles in. But it is important, I think, to have that kind of that club atmosphere. But it's important that you have the right club atmosphere. You know what I mean? That you have people that are genuine there to support you, because there is a lot of people, and like, I've had it over the years. Like, I had somebody in my old club say to me, "Why do you do so many Ironman?" And the most stupidest question I've ever heard. Like, why would someone ask you, why do you do so many Ironman? Because they didn't, I don't know, whatever their view was. But I always kind of thought to myself, some people are in your corner rowing your boat, and some people aren't in your corner. Do you know what I mean? And it's just about finding who's genuine. And I suppose, like the social media page, like, I do races and I have people that I've never met in life, from the other side of the world, and they're wishing you congratulations, and they're giving you positive feedback. And then you're someone who you've trained with for 10 years and they're asking you, why are you doing so many Ironman? But I do think clubs are good. I think clubs are supportive, but I think there can be a lot of politics in clubs as well as with anything, you know what I mean? So, and when you have different personalities, invested interests, etc. But if you can find a good club, even and that it does support you, then I would be a firm believer to kind of stay in it, because clubs change over the years. You have different personalities come and go, and if you can find. But in terms of, sorry, I'm long-winded answer to your question. In terms of getting into the sessions, like I don't really get any sessions there with Midlands. Like I run their running session during the winter. I run their turbo, but like that, I think it's important still to be active as well in the club as well. And if you're only able to make one session, then it's one session that you're not trained on your own. You know. Like I have an athlete that comes down on a Tuesday morning, and he comes down, he's training for an Ironman at the moment, and he does a bit of work beforehand, then comes down, maybe does whatever interval work, tempo work with myself, and then he jogs home. So he's getting his 16, 17K run in, and he's also getting a bit of crack with the lads, you know, and because it's lonely training on your own, and it's lonely cycling on your own, and sometimes it's a hard sell, you know, to other people. You know, like I've had lads over the years, they've jumped on board for Ironmans, they jumped off, and I just seem to be I don't even get these promotional emails from Ironman anymore. They just kind of know that I'm just I should be getting some sort of discount code or referral fee or something at this stage. But I do have a lot of people contact me in the page asking me for advice about it, and I do always say find a good club, find a good local club, and they will support you. Or a running group. Like you don't have to be maybe in a tri club. Just find a good running club or a running group or a good swim club, and you can just train with them. It's important not to train on your own, because it is lonely enough.
And when you're training for Ironman, like you said, it's very difficult to find people who are taking on 120k or today I'm swimming 5k, you know, like it's sometimes people are looking at you, even though they're involved in triathlon, going, no, you're nuts. We always talk about iron sharpening iron and the ability of training with people to improve yourself. How do people best do that when they train on their own all the time?
Well, I think that's where your coach comes into play. That's what I think. Like the whole thing with a coach is coach is accountability. So they keep you accountable for not doing your sessions. And like anyone that I work with, or anyone that I kind of help any way I can, like I'm not a snowflake. I don't take things personally, but I'm also very black and white with people. Like if it's in someone's program to do 120k and they're messing around with 80k, like there's no point them coming back to me on race day and saying I had a horrible bike. Well, you had a horrible bike because you didn't do your bike sessions. You know what I mean? Like it's black and white, but like it is isolating, and it is, you know, but I think it is important to have somebody that keeps you accountable, whether that be a run coach, swim coach, or somebody in the club, you know. And I am a firm believer that, like, if you sign up for a race, tell as many people as you can about it, because they're all going to ask you at some stage. And then, you know, like I know some people say about keeping things private, and to a certain degree keep things private, but if you're going to do a race, you know, tell people about it, and then they'll say to you, Mark, well, how did you get on your Ironman? And then you're like, oh, well, I didn't do it. And, you know, so that's...
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that any more. Well, obviously we have a podcast. We talk about all our races.
I've been trying to keep it secret for years.
You're about just 280 episodes in, lads. It's not working well.
Yeah, it's not working out. I think everyone knows I'm going to Dunshaughlin. That's it. Hey, random people are messaging me, best of luck in Dunshaughlin.
One of the things you had, I wanted to include in the intro, but to be totally honest with you, I didn't know what it was. You have a great quote that says, medals are earned in training, and you just picked them up on race day. But another thing you picked up recently on a race day was an AWA badge. What is that?
Yeah, so the AWA badge it's the all-world athlete. So again, look, it's a gimmick by Ironman. You know what I mean? Like, there are plenty of gimmicks. They're a well-oiled business machine. You know, they're there to make money. But they have this thing called the all-world athlete. So what it is, so say last year I would have, off the top of my head, I would have been in, say, the top 20% in my age group for athletes in the world. And then when you're in that, they have a kind of a tiered system. It's bronze, it's silver, and it's obviously gold. But what they do is it gives you a few extra perks. You get your early entry access to races. You get a priority entry line. Again, there's nothing major to it. You get a gold hat. It's, you know, it's a gimmick, but I'm all for a gimmick. As I said, I'm all for an extra medal and a
absolutely
fancy, you know. But it's something that basically recognizes athletes. So I had it previously, and then I lost it last year, and then I regained it this year. So it works on a point system. So you race at an Ironman, you get a certain amount of points, and then that's replicated then over the year. And at the end of the year, they compare all the points for all the athletes around the world. And say in the bronze one that I'm in, the top 18% would kind of, you get this all AWA badge basically.
So to
That
get
is
all these
air miles for Ironman.
Exactly.
That's a great way of putting it.
And it's stickers, it's more stickers for my bike box, and I put stickers on my bike, and it's just, I put stickers everywhere if I could. So I'm all for, it's a gimmick that had me very quickly on. So look, it's a ultimately it's a marketing tool, but I suppose it's just another way for Ironman just to probably engage with their community a little bit and kind of reward people, because obviously so many guys get on the podium, you know what I mean? And they're amazing. But at the end of the day, like in my age category, you're only going to have the top three. After that, then it's trickling down, and I suppose it's to try and engage with those people as well. But just going back, Sean, to what you were saying, like I do think that medals are collected on race day, that they are earned in training, and it's all about doing, like, you do the hard miles in training. Like, so everyone's obsessed with race day. Like, race day should be your victory lap, and it should be the day that you're showing off to your family and your friends, look what I can do out on the course here. So that's how I kind of look at it.
To get the AWA badge, you've obviously collected a lot of air miles, as Eric would put it, and you talked there about the hard training to keep your body going, like you did. Like I touched on earlier, 2 Ironmans in 21 days and all the rest. When you approach your training, how much of that is on how the body feels this week to get through, and how much of that is, like you said earlier, when it says 120k in the cycle, I have to do 120k today? How do you approach your training?
I suppose, like, I coach myself, so I hold myself accountable, and one of the reasons I started the page was it was a tool to hold me accountable. So every Sunday I do post my my training numbers for the week, whatever they are, and I know that if I'm training for Leeds, say at the end of July, that if I'm posting that I'm not doing the cycling, the swim, it's evident, and it's me looking at myself, and I'm using it as a mirror. That's what I use that social media page as, just a mirror for myself to hold myself accountable. But I know that the 2 races that I did, the 2 Ironmans, it took a lot out of me now, I have to say, like traveling to America, there was all the driving over there, traveling back, etc. And then resetting, I had to reset from a 70.3 format to a full distance format, even though I was kind of training in the full distance format with 70.3 elements. But I suppose it was just trying to reset and then get back over to Hamburg. Like, it fatigues you, it does. And I'm probably 2 weeks out from it, Hamburg, and I'm only starting to feel right again from it. But it's hard going.
And then you're straight on to Leeds next month then, is it?
I have Leeds next month, yeah. I've told my wife this is the last year of manic, crazy Ironman races, but I did sign up for Austria, Valencia in the 1 week, so I can make no
in the
promise.
1 week?
Yeah, I signed up for Valencia. It was I signed up for Valencia, and then Austria came out. And now Austria, I don't know if you've ever looked at that race. It's amazing. It just looks a beautiful country. I've never been there. And yeah, I just signed up. I got an early email, and I was just take my money. There you go, Ironman.
So do you fly from Valencia straight there?
No, thankfully no. Valencia is the end of April, and then Austria is the middle of June. So no, it's not.
Oh, sorry. So it's not within a. Sorry, they
No,
came out
God,
within a week.
no.
I thought you were doing them in a week. I was like, oh,
Same.
no.
I was like, oh my God.
Well, I've done 2 Ironmans in 28 days before. I did Bolton in 21, and then I went to Frankfurt, and that was tough going. It does, like, it takes. Look, I'm 44. I'm getting a bit on, etc. But I think you have to be very conscious of your body, and you have to be conscious of what your body can do. And like, there's days I come off the bike and I just know that the hard run the following day is going to be hard, etc. Like, I've started introducing strength and conditioning into my training in the last 2 years, and I found that that's an absolute game changer for myself. I have a strength and conditioning coach with CrossFit, and I've even dipped my toes into doing a high rocks competition, which was absolutely torture. Absolutely, I didn't take my top off or anything. I didn't turn into one of those lads, but it's just
I wouldn't know anything about that now.
No, nobody. They would be telling me to put my top back on. There'd be no one telling me, But like, look, when you're seeing athletes like that, like, amazing, they're brilliant, and my wife does it as well. And like that, it's a shared sport that we can both do as well. But it is important to listen to your body. Like this year, I would have went and I would have got some tests done, like in terms of rest. Like, I'm asthmatic, so I would have went and got respiratory tests done and cardiac tests, because there's so many people, unfortunately, and you see it, only recently, very sadly, young people are passing away because they have underlying health conditions and they don't know about. And I'm not sure if you know about, but well, you probably do, but your heart grows as you do more endurance. And if there's an underlying health issue, that's when something happens. So, like, I do tell lads, people spend 10 grand on a bike, but 300 or 400 euros to a consultant just for him to tell you you're all good for another 5 years, I think is priceless, because you're only here for a while. And again, going back to Cork, like, they were so tragic, those two people that lost their life down in Cork, and to be standing on the side with people that didn't come out of the water, it's very sad, and it's a hobby, and that's what we do with her.
And I think with all the social media, and I'm not saying it's in a negative sense, but so many people talking about it. We've a podcast about endurance. So many people, we make it sound easy. It's not. It's very difficult, and it should be treated with respect. But it's people are taking on these now, going, well, I could do this, and it is there for anyone to try. But like that, it's something that you kind of have to progress into. You kind of have to listen to yourself and get guidance along the way as well. It's so important, because a lot of the cases, it's actually fit people that are finding themselves in trouble because they don't know with certain issues they may or may not have. And like you said, if you are, not that you have to, but if you are taking the endurance route like you are very, very seriously, it's probably something you should include, just to make sure you, as you get on in the years, that you're still doing the right thing with 4 Ironman a year.
No, but it's so, like again, people will go and they'll spend 15 grand on a bicycle, which I think is crazy anyway, but they'll spend that crazy money on a bike, or 300 euros on a pair of carbon-based shoes. But like, you have to get your bloods done every year. You have to get checked up. You have to get your respiratory stuff. Like the cardiac consultant I went to, like, all clean bill of health, told me to come back in 5 years. And there is that moment where I was sitting there talking to him, and he was kind of looking at this, but thankfully it was fine. But you have to be so careful. Like, I remember the first race I did where someone sadly passed away. It was in Marbella, 70.3, and somebody they were very nervous for the swim, I heard afterwards, and took like 6 or 7 gels before they went into the water, and it's just scary, and like, if you're not used to that level of caffeine, it hits your system, and you're already under pressure, because when you get into the water, that's probably the time where, and if anything's going to happen, sadly, it's going to happen in the water, so.
Just the
and it's a sport
flowing at that stage. Yeah, I can only imagine. On top of it all, the gels, the caffeine, not being used to it, what that was doing to the heart.
Yeah. No, and it's like, it's a, like the same with you with marathons and all your other sports and Ironmans as well, Eric. Like, it's a sport to do with her. It's to enhance our lives. It's not like, the last place that anything I'd ever want that to happen is. And I remember when I DNF'd over in Frankfurt, and I ended up in the ambulance. And I remember, it's a very scary place for your family to get a call. You know what I mean? Your husband or loved one is in hospital, and come collect them. So it's not a place to be.
I thought about getting into an ambulance in mine just to get a lift.
Well, I was in the back of the ambulance, and I got 2 IVs, 2 glucose, and I actually thought I'd go out and win the Ironman. At that stage, I was feeling that good. And then some police officer stuck his head in the back and said, "Your bike has gone back in there into T1." So he said, "Your race is over." But yeah.
When you look at we talk about fueling, we talk about this, and we talk about enhancing your life. How do you balance so much training with work, with family life, with everything?
Well, how I kind of look at it, again, if you like, and I just see this a lot with people, like, there's a lot of people that dip into the sport, they might have very young kids. Like, my child is 18, so I'm lucky from that perspective. There's no young children here in the house, but I do see a lot of people, and they start doing, to do an Ironman, but it takes a lot of pressure on any family, especially if you're going off. You have young kids, and a Saturday morning you're going off and you're doing a 6-hour bike ride. You've kids under 5 or whatever. Our kids have to go. Kids are very busy. You know what I mean? They have to go a lot of places, do a lot of things, but it's very hard to balance it. But I think a lot of it is down to your support structure at home. If you have a support structure at home that is going to support you and is conducive to you getting your training done, like, in fairness, like, I couldn't sing enough praise of my wife, and I know I'm totally biased, but like, she supports me through she was down in Ironman Cork in 19, where it lashed rain. The swim was cancelled and it rained. She stood out in the rain for 15 hours, you know what I mean? And like, genuinely, without her support, I wouldn't have done all the races that I would have. Now, she's gotten into the sport herself since, and it's cost me a fortune, because I do get all my bikes sprayed. It's a lot of my bikes, I do get them custom sprayed by a guy up in Newry. And of course, unfortunately, she has gone down the same road as me, and she's a lovely pink bike out in the shed there. So, but look,
if you have it, she has to have it too.
I know. No, but thankfully, she only has 2 bikes: a turbo bike, and so I'm not. She hasn't caught up on me just yet. But I think it's support at home. I think it's like, I'm going to Barcelona in October, for another full. And my mother's coming over, and she's nearly 80, and I think like that's going to be a massive thing for me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, to have that support structure over there. My wife's going to be there. My mum, I think my sister's coming over as well. You know, because I go to a lot of races, and it is isolating. Like when I went to Florida recently, I was 7 days on my own over there. You know, now it doesn't bother me all that much, but you know, it can be kind of lonely. And when you're at the races, you know, it is nice. Like when I was in Hamburg, I had great friends over with me there in Hamburg, and it makes the race day better, you know, and it enhances it. But I think it's about balancing life, and I think that's where it is. And whether that's getting up at 4 a.m. and getting your training session done before you go to work, or getting it done after work, or your lunch in work, etc. It's just about finding that balance. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, as some days I work a bit of shift work as well in work, so I do find when you get up after shift work, you know yourselves, you're tired. You know, it impacts you, but you have to listen to your body as well. Like if you're going off and you're doing an interval run and you have a zone to hit or something, your heart rate, and you're not getting there, you have to listen to the body. Gadgets are great, they're brilliant, but at the end of the day, your body is the best indicator.
Sharing the event and afterwards, like I love making a day out of the Dublin Marathon when people come in and stuff afterwards. And even people that haven't done the race so much care. I'm like, no, it's just a celebration stuff afterwards. You don't have to talk about dissect the marathon all day. It's just being there and just having a laugh and all the rest. But talking about pre-event, and I want to go back to Hamburg because I was with Eric when he did his in Portugal. You know, you get there and stuff the night before, and the bike is all set up, and your gear bag's all set up, and you put your gels on your bike and all the rest. And you did that, and then you got back to your bike on the morning of the race, and you got this big race, and like you have to fuel for a marathon. So, but the amount of fuel that Eric needed to get through an Ironman is probably a lot more than just a marathon. What happened when you got to your bike the next morning?
Oh, Hamburg. So I do always find that moment in the morning before when you go and you know yourself, Eric, you go to the bike and it's like, God, has something happened to my bike overnight? Is it still there? And unfortunately, I'm seeing a bit of a trend, and it's happening at races where people are stealing things off bikes. So I would normally never do this, but I just thought one less thing, I'll try it at this race. So I put my race nutrition. So I normally use the Precision Hydration. I got a new bag off them, and I think they're the 60-gram bars. They're new kind of a bar. So I put them on the bike. I had 4 hours worth of nutrition, and I went to my bike, and it was gone off my bike. And I was shocked. I have to say, like, I've seen a lot of things over the years. I've seen a lot of shoddy behavior on behalf of some triathletes over the years, but this was like somebody, like my TT bike is a custom spray bike, so it does stand out. It's an unusual color, but someone would have maybe been looking at it and would have taken the food out from it. But I have to say, I was fit to be tied. I was thick, but I was thick because I had to reset. I had to put out my nutrition because, you know yourself, Eric, you have the special needs bag. So I had to rejig all my nutrition. But there was an athlete beside me. He was another Irish athlete. Donica was his name. And he actually offered me some of his race nutrition. And that stands out to me more than anything else. Like, I know I didn't take it because I wasn't going to impact his race. And I was able to rejig it myself. But I just always remember that was such a nice thing. You know, I'd only met him that morning, and he had offered me some of his race nutrition, and that was just amazing. But it is happening. People, like, I'm nearly at the view now, you know, you nearly need to put a lock on your wheel set in transition because somebody could come over and rob your wheels. Like, I've seen it. Like, I had a race bottle taken off my bike in transition in Barcelona last year. Like, a race bottle that I had been using for the bike course, and it was an unusual race bottle, and someone stole it. But people take bike computers as well. And then I put it up on social media, giving out about it. And I remember some athlete came back to me and said, "Oh, triathletes don't do that," and you know they do, but they do. Like, there's a small proportion. They do.
I love it. Someone told you they don't do that. It's like it literally just got done to you. I just can't imagine someone, because you're all in the same boat there. You're all obviously you're in that bike. Like, I know when Eric finished his Ironman, I was like, "Here, I'll collect your bike for you." He's like, "No. Only athletes are allowed to go in and get the bike." So it's obviously someone that's going through the exact same event, knows the fuel stuff that goes through, and then goes to have that lack of empathy for someone for a couple of bars. That in that particular moment, there's a lot more than a couple of bars to take. Is just I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, because like what really couldn't is that there was a Precision Hydration shop just outside T1, so somebody could have just went out, bought the bars. They were actually, I think, even discounted because they're on site, and they could have bought it. But I just couldn't get over that. How another athlete like if I did that to another athlete, I would know that someone would arrive down to their bike that morning and it would impact their race. And that would impact, and it threw my whole race out, because I had to improvise, and I had to, like, I was eating some nutrition that I wasn't hitting the carb mix on, etc. And I had to improvise. But in fairness, I remember I threw it up on social media, because I suppose it is a bit of a talking point. And I remember, in fairness, Precision Hydration, I suppose it was a good sell on them. In fairness, they made contact with me and sent me out a voucher, which was very nice of them, and very, very, very decent of them now, in fairness, because they didn't have to do that. But it's possibly the most scummiest thing that I've ever seen someone do to another athlete, and it's possibly the worst thing. And as I said, I've seen a lot of things over the years, and a lot of people do things to other triathletes, but that tops it now for me. So
I'm usually I don't know. Someone taking my food now. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I was
me.
thick. I was really thick. And I remember there was one of the guys with me, Tony, and he was just like, oh, look, it is what it is, and we have to kind of work. And in fairness, it was his first Ironman, so the nerves were kind of with him. So I kind of focused a bit on that. I just did quick maths in my head, and I just rejigged my food. But I do believe it impacted my race that day, in fairness, because I don't race with the products over there. I just don't like them personally for myself. So I use my own nutrition. But yeah, thankfully, I brought extra food down with me just to be on the safe side, but I didn't plan on eating Snickers that day. Now, they did taste lovely, so I'm not gonna no offense to Precision Hydration or anything, but a Snickers and Mars bar does taste better now. So at some points in the race,
It's fair.
It is something now. Look, I've only done the one, and it is my intention to come back when I move back towards Ireland to get involved in triathlon. It's hard when you travel to different places for work, it's hard to be involved, because you do need consistency. And that's one thing, Ambrose, you've carried a long, long way with you. I want to talk a little bit about fitness and the feeling of, because the pressure I felt training for an Ironman, I knew I had to be consistent. I knew I had to keep showing up. And then if I wasn't training, the guilt would kick in. If I was feeling tired and I didn't do it, as we've talked about, and I was like, oh no, I'll let it go today, or something's come up, or I'm on duty, or whatever it is. How do you deal with the constant pressure, and I'm going to say pressure, to train for an Ironman?
I actually love it. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe something I need to go talk to someone about, but I actually love it. It's for me, it's like I love it. Like I do myself my plan up on a Sunday. I email it out like I do to any of the athletes that I would be working with. And I love it. Like I look at Monday, I look at all the way through, but it's just, I know what it's like to have bad coaching over the years, and I know what it's like to be in a position where I'm not prepared for a race. And I suppose it's a horrible spot to be in a race, knowing that you haven't the work done and that you haven't ticked that box, and it's only down to yourself maybe at the end of the day that you haven't ticked the box, because like coaching isn't it's not complicated, and some people seem to make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. Like your Ironman is just consistency. It's just over and over and over again, getting your sessions done, and you build up your base endurance, and it's about holding yourself accountable. And I think that's something that I'm very good at, and I've had a lot of people comment to me just about that over the years, that I can coach myself, because I'm able to hold myself accountable, and that's what I use the page for. I said it earlier on, like I use the page to keep myself on track, because I know that if I'm posting, like if I post up this week that I did no swims, you know what I mean? And if someone is looking at my page and they're going to say, well, he's training for an Ironman in a few weeks, what's he at there doing no swims? And I'm very honest. I put whatever's up on my page. Like my page is all about the good days and the bad days. It's not just all about everything is success. Like I posted about my DNFs. I posted about the race nutrition. I posted about when things haven't worked out for me. And I think that's important, because we can all get caught up in, the perfect ideal triathlete picture. And like, I'm not, like, I'm far from perfect. I have many flaws, but I do go out and I show up, and I use the page just to support and help as many people. Like, not everything has to be behind a paywall. There's a lot of people out there that everything's behind a paywall, and that's just my views on it. That's probably a long-winded answer. Sorry, no.
You can see the breakdown on your Instagram of, okay, you ran this much this week, you did the swim, cycling. I did see those breakdowns of stuff. And for someone that was is listening to you now on this podcast and sees your Instagram, sees the traveling, and even I was looking at some of the stuff you did in 2024, Venice, Warsaw, Portugal, Barcelona. You're going back this year, Barcelona. You've done Frankfurt a few times. You've done Hamburg, Gulf Coast, so many different places. For someone that's listening and goes, right, the first one, I want to do an Ironman, and this is something I want to tick off. Whether it's a 70.3 or they have the Eric mentality of buy one, get one free and doing the double. Where would you recommend to go for that first Ironman?
Well, I think like some people pick the UK because logistically it's so easy to get there. You know, you put your stuff in the car, etc. But there's actually a race, and it's one of my most favorite races. It's in Germany. Like, there's a lot to be said for the Germans. They are super efficient when it comes to races. Everything is meticulous. It's Ironman Duisburg. It's on in the end of August. I'm not going to do it this year, but it's a small little man-made lake. It's a super flat course, and it's a super run. Like, that is a race that I just couldn't say enough. But if somebody, like, there's a lot of races around Ireland, like there's some great 70.3s in Ireland as well. Like, they're not Ironman brands, there's some great ones. I did one challenge event years ago. I didn't like it. It was one in Galway. It didn't tick the boxes for me. But Roth is a race that I'd love to do eventually at some stage. But definitely I would pick one. I would recommend to any athlete, find a race that you can sell at home. Like, don't pick a race that you're going to, that's not, like, if you look at Barcelona, same with Portugal as well, Eric. Like, it's a lovely race location. You can make it a part of a holiday, you know, and like, if you can try and include your family as much as possible, whether that be the Iron Kids. The Iron Kids is a great thing. I remember I was in Mallorca years ago with my daughter at the time. She did the Iron Kids, and then my wife did the Iron. I think it was called the Iron Girls competition at the time. It was like a 5K or 10K run, but it becomes a family event then. Do you know what I mean? And it's not just about you as such. And then if you're in a nice location, you know, like I went to Bolton a few years ago. I didn't like it at all. It's a race that I wouldn't go back to. I remember I finished the race and it lashed rain and someone tried to steal my phone, and that was just the icing on the cake for me.
Jeez.
I could barely stand up. It lashed rain, and I was trying to get back to the car on the maps. And these two young lads came up to me, and I knew what they were at. They were trying to distract me to get my phone, and I won't say on the podcast, but I just told them in the most crude way possible, because I wasn't, like, it was a time we were coming out of COVID, and you finished the race and you got a slice of pizza in a bag. It was all very depressing. Yeah, it was just, now look, I was lucky in 21. I got 2 Ironmans, you know, when people weren't able to get racing done. I was very fortunate. But I would definitely pick something. I would say pick something that becomes a family event, and pick something like that. Doesn't have to be the Iron Kids or the Iron Women's Competition or whatever the equivalent of it is. But if you can have something that's part of a holiday, like Barcelona, Cascais is just amazing in Portugal. We're going back this
beautiful.
year. It's a beautiful place. Portugal's a beautiful country. But as a first timer event, I wouldn't automatically say go to the UK. There's some very tough races in the UK. Like I did swear I was never, after Wales, I was never going to do a hilly event, and then I'm going back to Leeds now in 6 weeks' time, which is, I don't know, just stupid, but that's just me. I get caught by the fancy medals, you know. But definitely Duisburg is a great race. I would recommend as well.
I was mentioning Venice, Warsaw, and the next one I wrote down, because you did it last year, was Duisburg. But I couldn't pronounce it, so I skipped it. Right to myself now. I was like, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of that one.
Yeah, no, Venice is lovely as well. I didn't like Warsaw. Just there were some logistical issues I didn't like. You know, I didn't like it. But yeah, there's a lot to be said for Germans run a good race, in fairness to them. So.
And speaking, the other half of that question is, if someone's also listening to this podcast, they're thinking, this sounds like a lot. I'm liking what he's saying. I like this approach to training. I like that you've done all these events, and the amount of experience you have comes into a big way for coaching. Can people get in touch with you for your coaching? And if so, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, as I said, like, I don't run a business or anything like that. I have family, friends, you know, and I like to think that anyone that I'm working with is a friend of mine, you know, and I'm as invested in them. And I know it sounds like something off a pamphlet, but one of my athletes wrote up something about me the other day, and I'm going to have to post it on this week. Like, he wrote that I'm genuinely more interested in them finishing better than me at a race than I am, and I genuinely mean that. Like it's not about me beating them; it's about me being able to be on the course with them. And I was so lucky in Hamburg that there was 2 athletes that I was working with, and I was out training with them, and one of them came in. I think he did 11 and a half hours. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. His first Ironman. I was so proud of him. And then one of the other guys, he just came in behind me, but I was absolutely proud of him too as well. But anyone, if there's anything, like, I'm a qualified bike mechanic and technician, something I've just done for my own interest. So if anyone, I do always find, unfortunately, when you go to races, you become, when you rebuild my bike, will you do this, will you do that? And I've debuilt bikes in strange places. There was in a little car park one of the days with headlights for a car in Portugal a few years ago. I had to break someone's bike down because they were going on a late flight. But anyone that I can help, anyone that even just wants to just chat about before they get into it, because I would say, don't go down the road that I went down, like to go into the straight, the full distance, like the likes of Wales. It's all about stepping up, whether that be, your try first, your sprint, your Olympic, and then consider your 70.3, and then again, it's going getting yourself checked out. It's getting yourself medically checked, because we can all get caught up in this endurance mentality, and we can all have a midlife crisis and buy a 15 grand bike, but it's just not worth it. And pick an easy, soft race. And I don't mean soft race, there's no soft Ironman, but like when you compare the likes of Lanzarote, Wales, those kind of races compared to maybe, some flatter races, there's no point torturing yourself for your first one, maybe for your 15th or your 20th or something, maybe.
I've heard that taking the bloods, like getting your NCT and yourself done. You get it done in the car.
Yeah.
Why would you not do it yourself? Ambrose, it's been absolutely fantastic listening to you
guys.
for the last hour or so on the podcast. And those that are interested, we'll have the link in the show notes to your Instagram. It's at Westmead_Ironman_IRL. Best of luck in Leeds next month with the Ironman, and all the rest of the Ironmans you come up for the rest of the year, including that relay at the end of the year in Barcelona. And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. For myself, Ambrose, and Eric. Take care.